The League of Women Voters of Cape Ann is pleased to bring you 30-minute interviews with the two candidates for Mayor of Gloucester. The League is a nonpartisan organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We do not endorse any individual candidates for public office. The election is Tuesday, November 2nd. I'm June Michaels, a Rockport resident. The candidate with me is the incumbent, Mayor Sefatia Romeo Theken.
Well, thank you.
So, the first question I want to ask is that when people go into politics, they usually advocate for a single issue, or they run for school committee because they have small children, or they run for ward councillor because they have a big pothole at the end of their driveway. What kind of person gets all the way to the top and becomes a mayor? What sort of personality and character does it take to manage something this complex?
Well, city council for 13 years, when I first ran is because I wanted, the voices to be heard. I wanted fishermen's voices to be heard. I knew it was very difficult. I know being an advocate with the fishermen's wives, it was difficult. And some of the people on the council never came to the waterfront. And so I wanted to bring the waterfront to the city council. And we did that with Gus Foote. He was really an advocate also. And so as time went on and they were arguing who's going to be, the interim mayor when Carolyn Kirk was leaving, and going back and forth, and she changed her mind. She said, I wouldn't have done that, could have, should have, would have. In my whole life, I never wanted to be mayor, And so when I became interim mayor, I found things, it's so easy to judge people on this side. But when you're sitting on that side, it's like, wow. And what you enhance is, because city council governs, we administrate. And I'm going like, well, I want to do this, you can't. Well, how about, no, that's council, you should have stayed on city council. But then as time went on, and I kept hearing that people, even in City Hall, never been in the city administration's office or the mayor's office, which was mind-boggling to me, that we should have an open door policy. And so I started in the beginning of having my employees come to my office once a month on a Thursday to talk about nothing, just to get to know one another. And there was people on the first floor who didn't even know a basement, and vice versa on the third floor, and I'm going like, this is not going to happen. And why is because when I first went into City Hall, I'll never forget it. The vote was supposed to be sworn in after 2 weeks. That's the vote, but they sworn me in that night. And so I got a text from Jim Destino who says, you're the mayor now. I said, no, it's not for 2 weeks. He goes, no, you're the mayor. I says, I can't be mayor. I have an office. I've got clients, because I was working at the hospital. Oh, you're mayor. And it was like, in one weekend, I called all in the troops. You got to clean the office, got to do this and move it around. And sure enough, I was mayor. And I was walking around City Hall. It was so quiet. I didn't hear anything. And usually when Bruce Toby was there, I used to hear the girls running around, the dogs, everything else. I wanted to bring that being a family back. You can still run a city, and you still can have that City Hall. It's so beautiful, but people should be walking in and looking at the murals that are there. Feel free to just take pictures of what they want. I wanted to bring that back. City Hall to me is like a living, live museum.
So what it takes to be mayor is someone who's a great-grandmother with a very, 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 very large family.
That's right.
Okay. Of all the things that have to be done, what is the very top priority for your first 6 months in the next term?
Well, it's to continue bringing money in. See, we have a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's always on our mind. It took us 30 years to lift the water decree that we had. It took an aggressive mayor. Yes, I'm aggressive, but I'm aggressive for you. I'm aggressive because I've been there. I've been there as an advocate. I've been in the State House for healthcare. I've been in the State House for, so many things in fishing industry to, mayor and city council and schools. And you know what? When you have a city as large as ours, and yet, you're in the back, well, I'm tired of Gloucester being in the back. I wanted to bring us forward, and we still have a lot to do. We have the water treatment plant. We have great waterfront that we can expand and other communities, because don't forget, we give some water to Manchester and some Rockport to expand. You need another water treatment plant, but we can't afford that. There's no way. And why shouldn't we get the money that we deserve? We did the CSO project way ahead of time. Our pumps, everything you can think of, everything, because you know what? We had that degree, we did everything. And the fact is that there's money, with the ARPA money, all that millions of dollars that they want to use for the CSO projects. Well, I want it for my water treatment plant. I mean, I've already discussed 20 million from the feds. I want it all. What's wrong with asking for it all? Because we cannot afford keep continuing putting that on our taxes. Remember, the CSO project, I didn't want it on the taxes. I wanted a utility bill. And everyone, for 2 years, we argued that with Bruce Toby and I, with everyone. We had hearing after hearing that people said, I don't even have water. I don't even have sewer. We don't mind making our water beautiful and our beaches clean, but give us a bill. Don't put it on my taxes. That's not fair. And I agreed. And as soon as I became interim mayor, they turned around the vote. That's wrong.
So finding the money is the first
Absolutely.
step.
You know, the money is there, is continue, and then you got to work with your groups. If you don't regionalize and if you don't stand together, you're not going to get, we're all going to lose. So I've been working closely with Manchester, Rockport, you know, Essex. We've been working very closely together, is because they don't have a mayor. And I don't want them to be left behind. I didn't do that during COVID. I'm not going to do it during anything that we get. We need to do it together because they're part of us. And the fact is that we're going to do climate voices together, because if one goes under, we're all going underwater.
Mentioning climate,
Yeah.
what priority do you place on
It's
dealing
scary.
with it?
We're not like New Bedford. 90% of our waterfront is owned privately, and New Bedford, it's owned by New Bedford, so they have more state money coming in. And I was talking to Dan Rivera, Mass Development, and we're going to start, because for 13 years they've been doing this with Ann Margaret and Lenny Quarter, and there's all the groups in the waterfront facilities saying, do like you did with the Fisherman's Loan Fund. Give us a loan. We'll pay it back, but who's going to loan people money if they don't see an economic turnaround for that waterfront? We don't want them falling in, because it's, it's still our responsibility as all of us. So we've been working with the state on that. Finally, they understand that after 13 years, and it's coming, to fruition that, maybe we can do a loan fund, very low interest or no interest loan fund, but I want more. I want more. We know, if all of us that live here, and you can take all the pictures and videos, it's scary that the first year in 2015, I swear one of the boats were going to have lunch in the Gloucester House, because that's how the level was.
Isn't
And
that
it's
a
faster.
danger for any development or improvements on the waterfront, that 10 years after we make the improvement, the shoreline will be halfway up the hill?
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. It's not even 10 years. Okay, I know people saying, well, there's no such thing as climate change, but there's coastal resilience. Okay, you know what, people, we need to worry about it, because my high school students opened my eyes. I was a city council when they were talking about climate. See, when you show the picture of it, you can talk about it, but when you actually see the difference in the level. So I'm going around, I'm going like, I kept saying that. During a couple of storms, when I was younger, you go down the back shore, you were actually looking down, way down. Now you're almost level. Those rocks were brought there. We didn't put them one by one, and let's say those rocks put there, that's climate, that's the ocean. And yes, and I love the new program that they're doing at the paint factory. That scale, it really is happening. And what do? We don't have that opportunity like they have in New Bedford, but we need to worry about it now. Do we expand the breakwater? That's what a lot of scientists and a lot of engineers are saying. We might have to expand the breakwater, but if we do, what happens to the rest of the flow and effect? Are we a swimming pool then? What do? We actually, I've been working and talking with Division of Marine Fisheries too, because they're just as much as worried, because it affects us all. The climate change, and a lot of fishermen have been saying it. You're not seeing some of the spawning, you're not seeing some of the fish because of the climate. You know, the water's hot. So when haddock spawns, it spawns on top. But if it's too hot, it's not surviving. What's happening underneath? It's all to do with climate change. And we have to look at that, because look at the wafts that, you know, you hit it. The high tide we have, you know, there's a lot of parts in the United States that don't have a high tide like we do, such a high tide and then a low tide, you know, and that's why we were talking about some of the programs that we needed to do, the dredging, and some of them we're finally being listened to, is because the drastic high tide, low tide, and during the storms. Our biggest fear, even in the summer when there's no storms, is when it's really high tide and they say, you know, it's coming this way. There's flood warnings.
Yeah.
That's scary, because it's flooding.
It's coming up on some of the
And
streets
the same thing with
already.
the water treatment plant. If that's flooding, what do we do? Well, guess what? You call up the governor and saying, look what's happening, no pun intended, but we're full, and it needs to be done, and we're working, and we're getting that. We're getting the money to do the engineering work, to actually build these things, to do that, not on taxpayers' money. What's wrong with that? I want to be aggressive, but nicely.
Well, I'd like to ask you about two or three questions, two or three issues that you and your opponent disagree on totally. And also, in all fairness, are there a couple of issues that you are in complete agreement that we can,
Sure.
or that you believe we're in complete agreement on?
Well, I'm going to be honest, is that, you know what, people keep saying that, you know, hostile or toxic. For the past year and a half, the Gloucester Daily Times has published things in bold, so you make sure you read it. A lot of my seniors are not on social media, but they read the newspaper. So it's like you're being self-hypnotized. Negative, negative, negative. You're trying to tell me we've done nothing positive in the city? Why do we have to do that? And everything that we've done positive, they either switch the story around or give me this little blurb of, oh, what she did. So it's really mind-boggling that, you know, you have an opponent and, you know, he wants to, you know, reset. I have looked at lawsuits against Gloucester. John Bell, 47. Carolyn Kirk, I think it was like 38. Me, 46. Those are combined with everything, land, appeals, everything else. It's normal. The only thing is, I was the city councilor during all of those, and none of us as councilors, we've had more complaints. We've had police officers fired 3 times and still on the workforce. Nothing was leaked out to the newspaper or sent purposely to the newspaper to destroy someone's life. I would have never done that, and I'm just like in shock that, you know what, you hate me that much that you could do something like that. But do you realize you're hurting the city? Now, I had a responsibility to the city. I was around during the pregnancy pact, and this city suffered tremendously because the fact is people don't want to give to negativity.
Well, it became a joke on Saturday Night Live.
It was. And you know what? We have Action, Open Door, Pathways, Wellsprings. They depend on sponsorships. Who's going to sponsor them if it's negative? Then we had the police. We had another coming up. I turned that around very quickly. You know, sometimes you have to make a decision that you're not going to be able to tell people. You have to make that decision, even though most of your staff says that person shouldn't be that person. I says, I have to turn this city around, and the only way I'm going to do it is this way. And we did. We took negative, turned it into a very good positive. We started the kids and the cops and kids, and we're going forward on that one. Very little negativity. But now, do you really think that all this negativity that's been happening, and news media was calling me and stuff, and I said, you know what, I'm not saying anything. My businesses downtown needed to thrive this summer. This tourist season, if they didn't thrive, we would have lost a lot more. I am not going to defend myself when it's going to hurt others. I'm sorry. I am a mayor who's going to help this economy. And I text and emailed and talked to all those businesses. We lost a few. I'm not going to lose any more. So I let them keep throwing those daggers, Did it hurt me and my family? Absolutely. But can I tell you something? It just made me want to fight more for mental health, because for the first time in my life, after 23 years when my husband took his life, I stopped hating him. I loved him to death, but I hated him for what he did, and I stopped hating him because now I realize if you're not strong, what could happen?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would, since you talked about the negative publicity, I'd like to talk about the article that showed up on today's front page of the Gloucester Daily Times, saying that a formal request for public information was made and an order came down to release a unredacted report of the investigation into the 3 personnel complaints that came last year.
Well, that's the whole thing. 1 is litigation, and he has every right. 2 are complaints. Do you know how many people complain? Every day. There's someone complain about a different department or something that's going on. It's normal. When your supervisor tells you to do something and you don't like it or you feel that it's unfair, you put a complaint, except it never goes in the newspaper. And the fact is that when they want complaints, you address them. If I didn't know about them and I didn't get them, then how are they complaints? And I'm not talking about the litigation because I'm not allowed to.
Well, are these
But I'm gonna tell you
cases
something.
still in litigation?
One was. The other 2 had never been in litigation. Never. They had a lawyer, but it's all the same lawyer, all the same thing, and it's the same thing that's happening, and the same people were interviewed. Do you know the reason why some of the stuff that's being redacted? Because look, everything else is out there. Salty voice, hostile, loud. I admitted to it. It's not like I said, oh, I never did that. Because someone said you should have said, nope. No, you can't fix a mistake if you don't admit that you made the mistake and go forward. But I'm going to tell you something. Some of the questions that were asked were from 1999. Now, that person has changed their life since 1999. Why would I want that person's name out there? I was in a city councilor. Either was that person was not even anyone knew who it was. Why bring those up now? 2014, 2016. Nobody was even employed. The people who made the complaints weren't even employed with the city. Why bring up those? That's what was mind-boggling. Why bring up things that are not true? Why bring up those names? Are the names going to make you feel better? Because you all know what's in there. Everyone knows. The newspaper put it over and over. But they didn't put
The name.
They didn't put just those names, and I don't want to hurt them. There's no reason to hurt them because it has nothing, it's irrelevant. But the fact is also, is Regina Ryan did the investigation, whatever you want to call it, and found it that, you know what? Yes, salty language. The rest of it is not there. And the rest of it, a lot of it, she agreed with me. I have a right to say no raises. I have a right to say no. I have a right to say this. But the newspaper didn't put that. 1623 didn't ask me for that. They said it was an election year, but I didn't take out papers when that came out. So it's not. So I'm not saying I'm being targeted. I'm going to be strong because this city needs, okay, the economy boom. And we're doing great because you don't understand the ripple effect. Who gives to your PTOs? The restaurants. I have a funeral that's happening Saturday that this family didn't even think of anything. Who's participating? The community, the restaurants. Where do you get that from? A good economy? No, I am going to be a leader, and the only ones I'm trying to protect in that, because everything else is there. Mm-hmm. Everyone got the whole thing, the whole gist. Everyone else is there. But you know what is really mind-boggling? Can I read something?
All right.
Okay. So this was sent out June 18th, 2020. 2020, June 18th, okay? Dear team, where do I begin? First of all, thank you for being part of this amazing team. I've been mayor since 2015, city council for 13 years prior, and never seen anything like this and hot and crazy. We're all working more than ever. It's been a roller coaster ride for all of us. The fear of the unknown, fighting an epidemic disease that there's no cure for. To shut down the city, we pulled it together like champs. We're almost home for the stretch. Then the unthinkable happened. George Floyd. Heartache, protest, us versus them. When did that happen? In between, what's going on with the openings, more emotions, social media attacks, emails, texts. I added Senator Tarr, Representative Ferranti, Governor, Lieutenant Governor on this email too. They have been part of our team. Why am I writing to all of you? It's to apologize for my crazy behavior, the early or late night texts, the emails, the mumbo jumbo, sorry. I think Surrey doesn't understand my broken English. I want you to understand one thing. You've all done a remarkable job keeping Gloucester alive and running effectively, proactively. I failed you in my tone and my approach maybe these past few weeks, starting with the beach openings to now, as you know. My husband took his life. He hung himself. Everything had been okay until I heard the words from George Floyd. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I never thought my husband could have said those words or called out to me. September 11th, 1997. He wasn't feeling well. We're at my mother's. He says, I'm going home. And usually I follow along. But I said to him, you go, I'll pick up the girls and come home. Well, you all know the rest. I've never had regrets in 23 years until I heard those words. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. You see, my husband didn't die of a broken neck, but suffocation like George Floyd. And since then, I've been an emotional witch. No other way to put it. I'm better. I guess I've never had time to grieve, given I had 3 young daughters to worry about. I'm okay, depends who you talk to. I spoke to a close friend who's a pastor and a major in psychology. I guess she can fix the mind while blessing my soul. Yes, my sense of humor is a little bad. Still, there's no excuse how I behaved. You've been part of my team, friends, and much more. I wanted you to know you're a great team, best employees, best senator, representative, governor, lieutenant governor Gloucester's ever seen. I'm proud to be your mayor, but most of all, I'm proud to be part of your team. Thank you for always having my back and doing the best job in this crazy time we live in. God bless you all. Thank you, Sefatia. I sent an apology
That's
a year
quite
ago.
a lot to share with your
Well,
whole staff.
I sent that out a year ago. If you tell me that I hurt you, then I will try to fix it, and I apologize. I'm not hostile. You know what? Am I aggressive? I'm aggressive for this city because we need so much. Am I passionate and maybe a little loud because I am passionate? Absolutely. But I'm telling you something, I'm not hostile, and I have a heart. And do we make mistakes? Of course we do. One thing that I've learned, that you can have friends, but your friends can't be your employees, and your employees can't be your friends, because when you have to take charge, it's going to be hard. Mm-hmm. And when you have to say, you know what, you got to do your jobs, you got to do it. These people are dependent on us. We have an economy, we have this. I want to thank them because they brought it forward. Unfortunately, the newspaper turned it around. It was complaints.
I need to go on to a few of the...
Okay, and the fact is, I just want to let you know, I want to thank everyone because the courses and the programs and the things that we're all doing, as a team, we're all doing them. You know what? I bettered myself. We always have room to learn.
Thank you. As mayor, you're a member of the school committee. So what is the city's most pressing educational need, and how would you address it?
Well, there's so many. Excuse me. You know what? The times have changed when we have to put all children together, which is rightfully so. But you need the staffing for it, and you also need the school for it. You need the programs. See, when we were younger, a school is a building. It was the teachers that counted, and they still do. But the teachers need the technology. The teachers need the space. You know, I'm dealing with issues of like, oh, well, that school. You know what? I always loved my community schools. I cried when my community school stopped. And you know what? I would have loved to keep what they did. And I'm not on a subcommittee. In a lot of other places, actually the mayor's the chair, not our charter. So it was totally different. And I asked questions, and oh, look, you know, one of the things in the report was, look, she's hollering at Joel. We debate, we argue, because it's our children's future. So, you know what, I would have loved to have seen veteran school, a fire department. We need fight, we need safety. There's so many things that we need to improve in this city, which we are working on. Mm-hmm. And I want to thank them. We've got the best grants. Our fire department's got more grants. We'll talk. But the fact is that, you know what, we have children that are born with addiction. We have parents who have addiction problems. We have addiction problems in Gloucester. We have special needs. I don't know, and I can't tell you, and I'm trying to find out how. When they say, you know, autism is not hereditary, but I have a friend who has 3 children. Where's that? What's happening? But they're in our school system, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. But we have to understand that our paraprofessionals and our teachers know their students. So one's going to have a little outbreak. They need to take that child and be able to go someplace safe with that child, because that paraprofessional or that teacher knows. Mm-hmm. When you have no room because you can't go to the cafeteria because it's being used as a gym, you can't go to the stage because it's being used as this, and you have to go into a closet, or you see you're in a regular classroom. Okay, I was in a regular classroom, and a child had an outbreak, and it's hitting the paraprofessional, the children are all turning around. It's not fair for the children that they're, it's not fair for the teacher, the children, that we're gonna clap, which also can make more noise for the student that's having a little difficulty. And it's also difficult for that student when everyone's turning around, or you're saying, we need to focus, let's all clap, or let's all, whatever they do to focus. It's difficult. Shouldn't each child have that little space? Shouldn't the child be able to continue to at least hear and listen in a room that's just adjacent? You know what? I want every child to have a right to an education. And if we have to change things around, we have to address the issues. Because you know what? There's a lot of issues we're not addressing. The accreditation, the special needs, it's growing, but yet the state's not growing with the money. They're not addressing that.
That's right.
And that's what we need in our schools. We need more. You know, they're saying, well, the teachers, and you have no idea what these teachers, I've been to those schools even before mayor, even before I was actually an advocate for special needs and for the Italian community. So I've been on all the sides. And I'll tell you something right now. When I was first an advocate, we had children separated. Special needs students were separated. We put them together, and a lot of them all integrate very well, but sometimes you have that little episode. And we should all respect one another for that little episode, because we don't have the schools that's going to be able to hold that. You don't want to have another child seeing a door kicked in, or screaming, or hit. Why is he hitting the teacher? Why is he hitting Mrs. So-and-so? You don't want that, because now you have to deal with not only calming that child down, but you saw a little person who may never saw that is seeing trauma. And they're like, how do you explain it to them? We shouldn't have to explain to our children. They should be in school to learn. We should explain the alphabet. We should explain what's going on. And as they go older, diversity, but not why a person is not feeling well and hitting a teacher. That should be some private things. And you know who knows? That paraprofessional teacher knows when a child is going to have an episode.
I'd like to go back to the money and ask you, where in the annual operating budget, not the special projects or the initiatives, where in the operating budget are the weak spots? Where are the underfed departments and services, and how do we improve that?
Well, you can say they're all underfed, you know, but and you can say, well, not money that comes because it's one-time money, but I like to say, well, right now I've been mayor 6 years, and it hasn't been one time. We're getting all the time. We give as much as we can because I believe in the schools. A lot of our budget goes to the schools, and we've been working together. It's the first time ever that we've had no complaints when we did the budgets. We worked together. I even asked them during a meeting, I need you, because nobody, if you would have told me we're going to have trillions of dollars, there's no way. They told us that, you know what, we might not be able to pass a budget. This is from the state, the governor. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pass the budget in 2022. And I'm going like, okay, so freak out, you know, and then, no, you can't do this. I'm here in the budget. Don't do this. And I even asked the principals and administrations, because every year they get their cost of living, can you wait? Because I'm going to have to see if I need that money first. I'll give it back because it's in the contract. They have to have it. But can they wait before I pay them, because I want to see where this is going to go, and we have to do something else that needs to be done. They waited. You know, a lot of people don't know that. You know what? We do what we have to do. They waited. I mean, we know we're going to give it back and it's going to go retroactive, but they didn't get it like everyone else did. And that's what I'm saying. You need to actually say this is what we need to do. You know, the DPW is working underfunded every single year since I've been a city council. We always take there first. Water enterprise, the sewer, everything you can think of, we're taking money away. And we're taking laborers away. And we expect all of those things done, but half of the staff and half of the cost. And, well, we're going to get it this year, you know, chapter 9 to chapter, well, no, it's not. But everything else, we've asked my managers, you know what, you think this was my checkbook. I have been not spending, and we've been putting away because I'm tired of seeing buildings falling apart and no money. Since my administration, Jim and I came up with this team that we're going to do the, you know, the 40%, 20, the whole thing to put for maintaining our buildings. So when the high school's roof was leaking, I didn't have to go borrow money. It's there because we put it aside. I don't want to see that gone because any mayor can change whatever they want. I refuse to. We need to maintain it. We're having new schools we're not maintaining. And you know what? I'm tired of something happening to a new school and we don't, oh, well, we'll fix it. Or what? No. Get the people who contracted, who did it, to be responsible. The same thing what happened to the field house. The same thing what happened to the bleachers. We had the money. And that's what's important, is that we put the money in the right places and we put, how do you say it, the right team together to do that. And we have been.
Well, it's time for your 1 minute final remark to the voters.
Thank you. You know what? I am Sefatia Romeo Theken. I was born and raised here. Sefatia, Jimbanko, Romeo, Theken. It's me, people. And for those who don't know me, get to know me. I have an open door policy, even through COVID. I'm not 35 hours, I'm 24/7. Especially now, it's the most difficult time because before when you were a mayor, you can say, I'm not answering the email. Oh, look, it's caller ID. Now it's 24/7. I don't mind. I don't mind because I know if you're worried, then something is wrong and I should address it. I get worried at night when the wind's blowing. Is someone going to lose electricity? Where are we going to put our seniors if they don't have heat? Or in this summer, homeless. We're the only community who protected the homeless this year. The only one. The governor was shocked that I kept mentioning it in August. Well, yes. And before I shut down, the first thing I did is, who's going to be fed? What's going to happen? If a person with addiction has COVID, they're going to die. Because you can't bring them to the hospital with the withdrawal, and you can't bring them to a rehab with COVID. They're going to die. Not on my watch. We addressed it, asked the government, work with the partnership, have the phone calls, mental health issues. There's so many things that, you know what, some people may think COVID's gone, it's still here, but the after effect that we have to pick up, mental health issues, our roads, all of these things we have to work together, and we have to move forward together. We have to bring back Gloucester. We need to bring it together again. And that was my favorite thing. Let's move Gloucester together. And we can do that again, people. Please, I ask for your vote. Thank you.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, I want to thank Mayor
Thank you.
Sefatia Romeo Theken for agreeing to be interviewed, and Studio 1623 for providing these public service programs. Please vote on November 2nd. The League of Women Voters of Cape Ann is pleased to bring you 30-minute interviews with the two candidates for Mayor of Gloucester. The League is a nonpartisan organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We do not endorse any candidate for public office. The election is Tuesday, November 2nd. I'm June Michaels, a Rockport resident. The candidate with me is former council member Greg Verga.
Hello.
So people get into politics because they have an issue and they go out and advocate for it.
Yeah.
Or they run for school committee because they have small children in school. Or they run for ward councillor because there's a giant pothole in front of their driveway.
Yeah.
What sort of person makes it all the way to the top to be mayor? What kind of personality and character does it take to run such a complex thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I've done all that you just named. I started out on the school committee, and the reason I ran for school committee originally is because I had little kids in school, and so that was my main reason. Plus, I had gone to night school, earning my degree for 10 years, and so when I graduated from Salem State, I had these 2 nights a week I had already booked for studying and classes, so I was like, well, my kids are little. My youngest was approaching kindergarten, my middle was in elementary, and my older child was in middle school. So I said, I think I'll run for school committee. There was an opening at the time. So that's how I got my start there. Fast forward to when I ran for the ward councillor, it was, my kids were starting to graduate from high school, and I thought it was time to move on, pass the torch to somebody else who had a more focused approach to the schools. So that's why I ran for the city council. You know, the big issues that were going on at the time were intriguing to me, and I thought I'd do a lot more for the city as a member of the council. So I did the ward council for 2 terms and then at large for my last term. I'm running for mayor now because there's just so much going on in this city, so much controversy going on at City Hall. That's what motivated me to run. I originally took out papers in April to run for councilor at large. And then I just really started to think about, is this the best thing I can do for this city right now, is run for councilor at large? Because I saw some of the other candidates who were running for mayor who I've got to know, some I had known, great guys. But I really thought they had a long shot to win the seat, to become the mayor. And as I said, there are a lot of things going on. We'll probably touch on some of those, but it was important to me that the change had to start at the top. Our city needs to have a higher level of professionalism and respect for the subordinates and for the rank and file and the public at large. So that's why I chose to run for mayor, because I really think there's a need for the transparency, the efficiency, and the collaboration, and I feel strongly that I'm the right person at this time to do it.
With all the complexity of the city, what would be your #1 priority for tackling in the first 6 months of the term?
Yeah, well, the first priority is taken care of automatically by a victory on November 2nd, because we can reset Gloucester and reset the tone. As I mentioned, if there's just a lack of professionalism at the top, it trickles down to the rank and file, and it's felt by the residents. So that's my first mission. So on November 2nd, that's taken care of. When I take the oath on January 1st, we've got a lot of ground to make up. We need to start refocusing that wasted energy we've been wasting for the last year or so, 2 years or more, on the everyday bread and butter issues, the safe sidewalks, roads that are maintained and repaired equitably throughout the city. Our schools, we want to make them among the best performing in the state. And so without the litigation issues that are plaguing the current administration, the Verga administration can focus on those things. And then we can also set the sights on the future, which we really haven't had much of a vision. You know, a vision by hoping for grants is not a vision. We need to really lay out a groundwork of what we want to see in the next 10 years, 20 years and beyond. And as I've said before, I'm not interested in being the mayor that cuts the ribbon or gets the name on the plaque. I'm happy to lay the groundwork now so that mayors down the road can take credit for it. I just want to make sure that my grandkids have something that they can, a city they can be proud to call home.
Well, you mentioned one of my favorite words, the vision question. Can you tell me, can you describe what Gloucester 10 or 20 years from now should look like?
Well, what it should look like, I can't be the one to say what it should look like. It's going to be based on what the public, what direction they want to guide their elected officials in. I mean, my vision is not necessarily the right vision, but it's starting to listen to the people, truly listen to the people, and set the course for us. An example is the I-4C2 parcel. There's a lot of controversy about the one proposal that's been floating around, the Gloucester Forum. I've told people I think it's an intriguing idea, but it's only one idea. We need to see what other ideas there are, because anything that's going to go down to the I-4C2 parcel, unless it's related to marine industrial, is not going to work. It's going to need relief because it's in our local marine industrial zoning, the state's designated port area, and the state's Chapter 91. So we, as a city, the city council, can change the marine industrial zoning. I don't want to say it's not a problem, but it's basically a vote of the council after listening to the public. But those other 2 levels of regulation, we have to go through the state. And in order to ask the state for a home rule petition to give us relief on either of those, we need to have the support of the mayor. We need to have the support of a supermajority, if not a full support of the city council. And I guarantee that me as mayor and the city council are not going to get behind anything without feeling that they've got the support of the public, because it's a very controversial thing, removing things from the designated port area. So my vision is, let's make Gloucester, we need to grow, we need to maintain our heritage. Everything has to be done with the full transparency and the input from the public. I don't want to be the mayor that's remembered as jamming things down people's throats.
Well, that sort of slides into the next question. When you have all these different voices asking for this and this and this, and all these priorities which all have to be done today or yesterday, how do you go about deciding where to spend your energy and determine your priorities?
Well, the good thing is it doesn't have to be all my energy and my priorities. I want to see a lot more we and a lot less me when it comes to decision making in the city. And we have a great staff of managers in the city. We have a great staff of professional employees in the city. I will be leaning on them as we move forward, because as I've been saying to people, I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough to know everything. And I'm going to be dependent on these managers we have, and I'm going to be depending on the public as a whole. There's organizations all over the city that have specific things they focus on. So if we already have that level of expertise within these different compartments of the city and departments of the city, then we shouldn't be waiting until this election is over. It should be happening now. But I will guarantee when I become mayor in January, it'll be happening on a regular basis. I'm going to be the guy who has to actually make the decision, but it's going to happen with input from a wide range of people and organizations in our city.
So where do you think preparing for climate change and ocean rise are in the priorities, and what should the city be doing in the next 2 years?
Well, the first thing is admitting that it's real. You know, there are those who to this day will not admit that climate change is a real thing. So whether you believe climate change is man-made or whether you believe climate change is a result of the cycles of nature, look out the window and there it is. You know, we see it with the flooding down in the Gulf Coast. We see it with the fires in California. We see it with the crazy temperatures in Oregon. And we see it here over in my neighborhood in West Gloucester where the Little River is just rising, you know, at a crazy pace. So first thing is to do is take it seriously. And I think that's, you know, the city is taking it seriously. But are we acting fast enough? We had the climate resiliency study with some recommendations. The most obvious recommendation that we should have jumped on a long time ago was a climate resiliency director that's a full-time position. In other communities, they've taken on this, created this position, and it's paid for itself. So there are a lot of other recommendations in the study that we haven't jumped at yet. One that I find odd is a recommendation was to reinstate the position of the tree warden. And we gave it to somebody who's already overworked, and I'm not going to criticize that person, does a great job, but just throwing a title at somebody doesn't really mean the job is going to be done to the fullest potential. So that's something I'm going to take another look at.
Is that part of developing the waterfront to make sure that whatever we build is not underwater in 10 years?
Well, yes. I mean, a lot of that, the I-4C2 parcel, we have a decision to make if we're going to have something happen there. Are we going to sell the land, or are we going to lease the land? Or are we going to keep the land? So if we keep the land and we decide to build something as a city, we'll have to follow the same guidelines and regulations that everybody else does in terms of if we're going to build, it's got to be, 12 feet up on stilts, and, you know, the occupied levels are above that. So that's going to happen with anybody else who wants to build throughout the city. We're already taking measures at the sewer treatment plant, which is below sea level. You know, they're building a dike around that. We've got the funding for $3 or $4 million to do that. They're going to do something similar at the high school, which is below sea level, to try to, but Mother Nature is going to win. So talk about laying the groundwork for the next generation. We can build these dams and these dikes and all these other things we're talking about, but at some point, maybe it's 25, 50 years from now, it's still going to be insufficient. So we have to be thinking long term about where is our high school going to end up, 50 years from now? Where is our sewer plant going to end up 50 years from now, or even sooner? But take it seriously and act upon it now. Lay the groundwork for tomorrow, but do what we can today. That's where I stand on climate change. It's real, it's not pretend. It's not a political, it shouldn't be a political issue, but it has become one. It's real, and we just can't keep kicking that can down the road, because the road is going to be flooded.
That's a good way of putting it. As mayor, you're a member of the school committee.
Yes.
What is the city's most pressing education need, and how would you address it?
Well, one of the big issues we have is chronic absenteeism. It may not be the biggest, but it is a big issue. But it's not simply you've got truant kids who just don't want to go to school. There's a lot of other social issues going on, whether it's bullying at school or other things like that. So that's something that's got to be at the top of the agenda, which it is for the school committee. I'm not implying in any way that they're not on top of these things, but that's one that's going to continue. One for me is the vocational school. I've talked about that before. It was discussed at the previous debate we did. But we currently have 4 programs at the vocational school: carpentry, electrical, machine shop, and auto shop. It'd be great to add another class or 2. We can't do that without building a partnership with the North Shore Tech, because they basically, for lack of a better term, they have veto power over what we do here. So we have a member, Val Gilman, Board 4 City Councilor, is our city's representative to their school committee. So we need to have a true partnership. When you have them, as of 10 years ago when I was on the city council, in a presentation from their superintendent at the time, saying they get about 1,400 applicants and only 700 get a slot. At the time I says, well, do you send notes to the other 700 saying you didn't get in here, but Gloucester's got programs, or PD has? And they said, no, we don't do that. Good idea, we should, but 10 years later we don't. So I'm hoping that we can get something like that going. Because if we start having an influx of out-of-district placements to our school, that's choice money to us, and we can build the programs. But we should be looking at programs of tomorrow. Is it going to be masonry or plumbing or the traditional things, or is it going to be more like a biotechnology or nursing assistant? So we really need to have an open mind about that. But that could really help boost our high school and our school system in general.
So the annual operating budget, which the mayor prepares and the city council chews on for several months out of the year, what are the weak spots? Where are the underfed departments and services that could be improved?
Well, one of the big ones I'm finding, because it's in my door knocking, phone calling, it's widespread. Everybody's got their certain issues in their list of 2 or 3, but one of the 2 or 3 seems to be occurring all over the city is the road conditions. Whether it's a private road not getting any attention or some public roads not getting attention. Not getting a lot of attention. And then in talking to the DPW director recently, I learned that his budget for potholes is $30,000. $30,000, that's what it was when I was on the city council pretty much, 6 years ago. So that is one, because that's the one that people see. They look out the window when they're looking out the window looking at climate change. They're also looking out the window at the potholes in their neighborhood. So that's the one that keeps recurring. It seems so minor, but it's the one that keeps jumping out as the focus of a lot of people. So we're wasting money on things like, an investigation of cupcakes. Maybe that $17,000 could have been pumped into if we're able to find money for that, we could have found money for the pothole budget. That's one area of weakness. I guess we have to look at growth. I mean, the mayor's office, since I was on the city council, has 2 more full-time employees. Is that something that's the best use of our money? I don't know. There's a shortage, and I think the planning department could use some more staff, professional staff. We have one person in the department. So those are just a few issues. And the one that hits every year is, you've got the fixed costs that go up, the insurance, salaries. Those are the ones that we have very little money to deal with after we deal with the fixed costs. So, and we only have one, other than fees, we have our property tax, which can only go up 2.5% in total every year. So hopefully that answers your question as far as the budget. It's a moving target. It depends on what's the hot topic of the year when the budget's being put together. But we're a $130 million corporation roughly, and we have to make sure we're acting accordingly with professionalism from top to bottom.
Now, today's Gloucester Daily Times had an article about releasing the unredacted report about the investigation into some personnel complaints last year. Would you like to comment on that?
Yes. Release the reports. That's pretty much it. The public has the right to know. I mean, the redacted reports, I haven't been involved in city government, so I don't know all the ins and outs of what has been whispered around. So me, as just a resident reading those reports, I couldn't make heads or tails of them because the redactions, it looked like a CIA document talking about UFOs. There was just nothing left there wasn't enough content unredacted to make heads or tails of what was in the report.
Well, thank you. As a rock porter trying to do research for the debates and the interviews, I had the same reaction to what was already printed in the newspaper and available.
Right, exactly. So, we talking about the money that could be shifted to potholes and other important priorities. We have spent thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, some of it through insurance, but we will get zinged when it's time to renew our insurance, paying attorneys to perform these investigations and then to hide the results of the investigations. The Secretary of State's office made it pretty clear that the city, were supposed to release the report unredacted. We're supposed to release it, and then it gets released redacted, and then a memo which came and went. None of us knew about it until we went digging, and then they had a follow-up saying release it unredacted. So here we are still. This could have been resolved, in, I don't know, April or whenever the reports were initially released, and here we are 6-7 months later still talking about this because no one really knows the true story. They shouldn't have happened. It's that simple. I believe the mayor, through apologies and the fact she took an online class on how not to be mean, she's basically admitted that the results of those reports, those complaints, had some truth to it. Should have never happened. Professionalism at the top, trickles down, avoids legal costs.
Now, can you tell me on what 2 or 3 issues you differ the most with the incumbent mayor? And also a couple of issues on which the 2 of you agree.
That's a great question. Well, one thing I think we agree on, it became apparent at the debates with the 6 of us running for mayor for the preliminary, is, because it was pretty much said, if affordable housing was an easy fix, it would have been done by now. So that is a tough nut to crack. I think we're in agreement on that not being an easy fix. However, we could be doing a little more to push it. There are things like the Affordable Housing Trust, which short-term rentals, Airbnb taxes, is supposed to go to a fund that is supposed to be going to the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm not quite sure it's making it there, if it's in some general fund line item. But those are things we could be using money now to proactively look at, increasing housing opportunities. Other things we agree on, that's a tough one. I couldn't tell you. I mean,
okay. So what do you disagree the most on?
Yeah, well, I disagree on how we should be treating employees. I think that's become pretty apparent. I think that I talked about the vocational school. I think the schools are an important thing. The mayor is, as you mentioned, a member of the school committee. I am looking forward to returning to the school committee. I was there for 8 years as a full voting member. It shouldn't be the school committee did that. It's when you're one of 7 on the school committee, you can't be pointing the finger at your own group. So there should be no mystery between what the mayor's thinking and what's happening at the school committee. The mayor's supposed to be the link between the school side and the city side, and I intend to fulfill that obligation with constant communication with the school committee chair and the city council president, and regular communication with the other members.
What can you as mayor do to improve the transparency in how decisions are made and how money is spent by the government?
Well, one of the big things, like I said, is just setting the tone and insisting upon it, letting the people know below you that this is how we're going to do things. I mean, I have a history of it. When I was on the school committee, I was the guy that pushed to get the school committee minutes and agendas on the website. I was the guy, as chairman, who moved the school committee meetings from the school committee chambers at Fuller to City Hall because they had live broadcasts through local cable. When I was on the city council, I pushed to have all the boards and commission notices for meetings posted. Before that, it used to be there's a glass case outside the city clerk's office. That's where they posted the agenda. Now, when the city hall was closed, where do you get it? I mean, you really can't unless you have really good eyesight and you're peeking in the back door. So those are examples of what I have done. And it will just continue as we go forward. There should be no surprises. There'll be no backroom conversations and deliberations and decisions made when I'm mayor. Everything's going to be out in the public, and I want people to hear me now that that's the way it will be. There will be no favoritism. There will be no people who have access and others who are on the enemies list who will not have access. Even the people that I know today do not support me for mayor, whether they're running for city council, school committee, or general public, they will have the same access to me in the mayor's office as those who I know are supporting me. I don't hold grudges. Someone asked me the other day, but aren't you Sicilian? Yes, I'm Sicilian, but I don't hold grudges.
Well, you talk fast, and we have actually gotten through all of the questions that I had to ask.
Great.
Since there will be a debate run by the Chamber of Commerce, and you will have an opportunity to answer many more questions.
Yes.
So would you like to end with addressing the
Sure.
the voters?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, June, and to the League of Women Voters for hosting this today. So, as I said, I'm running for mayor. My name is Greg Verga. I'm running to be your mayor for a more efficient, more transparent, and more collaborative Gloucester. Those are going to be the key things that are going to help us move forward. We can get off this hamster wheel of litigation, of problem creation, explanation, and litigation. Once we break that cycle of nonsense and wasting time and money, we can focus on those bread and butter issues and looking forward for the next generation. So if people would like more information, they can go to voteverga.com. The phone number, email is on there. Call me direct. I'm happy to chat. And I really would love your vote on November 2nd so we can actually move our city forward. So thank you so much.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, I want to thank Greg Verga for agreeing to be interviewed, and 1623 Studios for bringing these public service programs to you. Please remember to vote on November 2nd.